Hello all, a great afternoon. A warm welcome to all of you watching this video. And as you know, this is actually the series on Prelims Masterclass 2025. And for all of you who are watching this particular video for the very first time, I would like to introduce myself as Sureka Bhaskar. So I was the one who was dealing with environment and ecology for you guys for the upcoming Prelims examination 2025. And now we have actually switched over to the next session, that is nothing but, or the next portion or the next theme of your syllabus, that is the schemes. Okay, so as you know, we would have discussed about various schemes from 17 different ministries, and if you would like to recall, we had actually discussed about various schemes under Ministry of Agriculture, like the mission on or the National Mission on Natural Farming. Then we discussed about the Namo Drone PM Kisan scheme, as well as Kisan Manthan and all those different schemes we had discussed. Then we moved on to different other ministries, like the ministries of Panchayati Raj. We discussed about Niti Ayog, that is the Atal Innovation Mission. And then we discussed about the Ministry of Heavy Industries, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, then Ministry of, Petroleum and Natural Gas, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, then Fisheries, as well as textiles, under which we saw different missions like the Technical Textile Mission, and we spoke about the Samarth, the FDI of 100% through automatic route in the textile sector. All those we actually discussed. And also other ministries, if I actually have to recall what are the other ministries we did apart from this. Yeah, most of the ministries are covered. Okay, so we actually covered 17 important ministries, including Ministry of Road Transport as well as Highways, and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, where we discussed about Awas Yojana, and we also discussed about the National Urban Livelihood Mission. So all these different schemes we had actually discussed, okay, which are extremely important for the exam. So how the schemes actually appear as a question in your prelims examination is that it will actually come as different pointers where you need to know the beneficiary of this particular scheme, and then you actually have to know which is the nodal ministry for that, and whether it is a centrally sponsored scheme or whether it is a central sector scheme, and what is the eligibility criteria to you to be be a beneficiary under a particular scheme, and what is the period of implementation, whether the economic survey, I mean whether the budget 2024 or 2025, it has actually come up with it, and the year of implementation, all that you need to know. So after discussing the important government schemes, we moved on to today we are actually going to move on to the most important section of this most important discussion, or the most important theme for your examination is your reports and indices. Okay, so what are these reports? What are the global reports? Which is the nodal agency which publishes it, whether it is an annual edition or whether it is published biennially, and what are the takeaways or the key observations of the report? All that is very important. And what is specifically the ranking of India, whether it has performed better or it has actually gotten a backseat when compared to that of its neighbors as well as the other developing nations, and what is the status of India or the role that it actually plays as a representative of the global south. All that becomes very, very important. So today we have actually picked up this particular as well as a very, very important topic, that is reports and indices, where we will be discussing about the global reports as well as indices, and the Indian reports and the indices. Okay, so as you actually see behind me, this is actually the reports and indices discussion, and this or these are going to be the reports that we will be discussing. Okay, so this is a representation of what? These are your global reports. So let's see what are the global reports that we are going to discuss. The first one, we will actually start with the global gender gap report. Okay, so global gender gap report. So what do you mean by global gender gap? So gender gap is actually whether men or women when compared to men, whether how much of or what is the percentage of opportunities that they actually get, whether be it in the economic opportunities they get, or be it the political empowerment they get, whether the health or the standard of living they actually get, what is the education they actually get. So based on all that, we come up with the Global Gender Gap Report, and this is actually released by WEF, that is World Economic Forum. So here we'll be discussing about the Global Gender Gap Report by the WEF. Okay, then moving on, we will be discussing about the concept of intellectual property. So with respect to that, we'll be discussing the World Intellectual Property Indicators Report of 2024. Okay, and this is actually come up by WIPO, okay, World Intellectual Property Organization. So we'll discuss about what are the different types of intellectual properties. When it is actually given to a particular brand, what is that named as? When it is given to a particular product or the goods of a particular geographical location, it is called as a geographical indication. What do you mean by patent? What do you mean by copyrights? All that we'll be discussing here. Okay, moving forward, we will be discussing about the SIPRI report. So SIPRI actually stands for the Stockholm International Peace and Research Institute. Okay, so SIPRI actually comes up with an annual report on the amount of exports or the status of exports and imports of arms by the different countries or globally. And here, interestingly, it has actually found out that Ukraine, from the period of 2021 to 2024, since the Russia-Ukraine crisis, Ukraine has actually been the top importer of arms, and India happens to be the second. Okay, so here we will actually see who is the largest supplier of arms for India. And as I told you, India is actually the second importer. And what are the imports that India depends on? From Russia, what does it get? The Rafale jets from France, what does it get? What are the drones, that is MQ drones from the United States? All that we will look at in this particular report. Okay, now moving forward, we will talk about the State of Ocean report. Next one is State of Ocean report. And interestingly, can you believe that this report is released by UNESCO? So the organization or the agency that actually releases a particular report becomes very, very important. Don't just be carried away by the name. By looking at this, don't decide that it is either UNEP or UNCLOS or anything like that. Okay, so it is UNESCO that actually came up with the State of the Ocean report. So moving forward, we will talk about the State of World Migration report, which has been brought by the International Migration or International Organization on Migration. So we'll be discussing about who are, what is the status of migration, which is the portion of the country or the continent that actually hosts the maximum number of migrants, whether there are a lot of exodus of people from India or whether there is intrusion, people actually get into India. All this we will be looking at. Okay, the immigrants and the out migration statistics. Okay, so this is what is the World Migration Report. So moving forward, we will be discussing about the Global Solar Report. The Global Solar Report of 2024, and this report has been released by the International Solar Alliance. So here, what is important for us to understand is what is International Solar Alliance? That is, it is an alliance that actually was initiated by the countries of India as well as France in the year 2015 in the COP21, I think. Yes, COP21 of 2015. Okay, so here we will see who are the members who can actually join it, whether all the UN members can join it, what is the funding that is proposed, and what is actually the global solar capacity, what are all the other dynamics or the targets that is actually set by different countries. All that we will see. Okay, so this is what is your global solar report of 2024. Moving forward, we will be talking about the World Drought Atlas, and this has been released by the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD. Okay, so World Drought Atlas, and here we will be discussing about what are the reasons for drought. And it is very interesting that any country or all the countries actually have the potential of being into this situation of drought, is what the UNCCD has actually deduced. They said that not even one country is exempt from this particular situation, and we'll also see what is the condition for India and what is the reason particularly for drought, whether it is the El Nino induced erratic monsoons or what is it. Okay, so this is what we'll discuss in this particular topic. Next one, we'll be discussing about the State of World Children Report. Okay, State of World Children Report, and this report surprisingly released by UNICEF, United Nations Children's Fund. Okay, so here we will be discussing about what is going to be the threat that the children might actually face in the coming years or by 2050, whether it's going to be shift in the demography, whether it is going to be what to say, the climate change, the pollution, or the biodiversity loss. All that we will actually see here. And also we will be looking at the cutting edge technologies which might have implications on the children, okay, like AI, etc. Okay, so this is what it is, or the internet of things, all those technologies. So here the state of world children report, and here we'll be discussing of the state of world forest report. Okay, so very surprising. You will know, na, the forest report might be what to say, either UNEP will come up with it, or UNDP might come up with it, or you will actually think some environmental agency will come up with it. But surprisingly, the state of world forest report has been released by the FAO, that is the Food and Agricultural Organization. So we will see what is the takeaway from the world forest report. What is the amount of deforestation, whether we were able to what to say, sequester enough amount of carbon using the forest resources, whether India has lost forest cover or it has gained forest cover. Okay, so all that we will look at over here. Next, moving on, we will look at the food crisis report. Okay, food crisis report. Interestingly, you will think, since it's actually food, you will think about FAO, that it would actually come up with it. No, this has been released by Food Security Information Network, that is FSIN. Okay, so here we'll be discussing about what is the concept of food security, what is the concept of food insecurity. Okay, because food security is all about accessibility, and then consumption, utilization, and all this should be in a stable manner. So stability, so it depends upon all these four, and the food has to be available for all the people at all times. Okay, and this food has to be satiating, what to say, their dietary patterns. It actually has to be very, very healthy, it has to be safe for consumption, and it has to be accessible. So these are also the different parameters which are used for measuring your food security. Also, you must know that food insecurity means what? There is inaccessible, or there is less accessibility to food, and this can actually be chronic, that is when it extends over a longer period of time, that is when it is called as chronic, and that can lead to malnutrition and other kinds of mortality rates, as well as you have the stunting, wasting in children, etc. Whereas there is also another one which is called as transitory. Okay, so there is transitory food insecurity, which is due to the changes in the environmental conditions. For example, there is sudden drought, there is sudden flood, as well as you have economic factors like inflation. So because of that, you will have this particular food security threat. So this is what we'll be discussing over here, and also we will see which are the countries which are subjected to increased amount of food insecurity. Okay, next we will move on to a very, very interesting topic. This is nothing but the plastic overshoot day report. Plastic overshoot day report. Okay, so what do you mean by plastic overshooting? This is nothing but what is the quantity of plastic waste does a particular country produce, and how much of capacity it has to manage that quantity. This is what is called as plastic overshoot. If it goes beyond that, then what happens? It will result in what? The plastic pollution, biodiversity loss, contamination of water, and so on. Okay, so this is actually the plastic overshoot day report. So this is where we will be discussing how much of plastic waste India contributes, the world actually contributes, and where India stands when compared to that of the neighbors and other South Asian countries, etc. Then we will move on to a very, very important report, that is the Human Development Index. Okay, so Human Development Index. So here we will be discussing about what do you mean by the concept of HDI, and what are the parameters this HDI is calculated on. So one is nothing but your education. Okay, one is your education, next is nothing but your health, and the next one is your quality of life. and what are the, what is the amount of score that it actually gives from 0 to 1. What does 0 indicate, what does 1 indicate, and India has a score of 0.64, whether it has been an upgradation or India has actually attained a backseat. So all that we will be discussing in this HTI report 2024. Then we will be discussing about the state of migratory birds report. Okay, so state of migratory birds report, and this report of 2024 has been released by the CMS, that is Convention on Conservation of Migratory Species, and this is also called as what? The Bonn Convention. This was adopted in the year 1979 and signed under UNEP, and currently it has 133 members, and whether India is a member or not, all that we will be discussing in this particular article. Okay, so this is the state of migratory birds report 2024, and the last report is here. Interestingly, the road safety report has been released. Okay, so road safety report, and what is the, you know fatality which is actually caused by the road accidents, and which countries actually have the gaps in the governance structure, especially the middle income and the low income countries where the rates of accidents is more. So we will be discussing about the road safety report of 2024. Interestingly, again, this has been released by WHO. Okay, so World Health Organization, and the last will be on international status of migrant or state of migrant workers report. Okay, so we will actually see which portion of our earth, or you can say which of the countries actually host the maximum number of migrant workers, for what purpose, how much of out migration actually happens with respect to India. All that we will discuss here, and this has been released by International Labour Organization, that is ILO. Are you clear with all these things? So these are very, very, very important reports, and I had to give you this introduction in order to make you understand how important our discussion is going to be. Okay, today and tomorrow we will be completing the global reports, Indian reports, as well as global indices, as well as Indian indices. So this is what is the is the number of topics, are the number of topics that we will discuss. Now moving forward, now we will move on to what? The reports that are actually published by India. So first, to start with, we will be discussing about the state of Indian Forest Report. Okay, Indian Forest Report, where we will be discussing about the rate of deforestation, afforestation, conservation practices, all those things. Okay, and this is of 2024, and this has been released by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So you need to know about this particular report. The next report, let me take this place up. So we'll talk about India Skills Report. So skills report. So this, whether Ministry of Skill Development releases it, or you will know that it is published by VBox in association with AICTE on All India Council for Technical Education. Then you have Confederation of Indian Industries, and finally Association of Indian Universities. Okay, so all these organizations come up with India Skills Report. Next, we will move on to understand the National Health Accounts. Okay, National Health Accounts. This is released by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So here we will be discussing about what are the statistics that what is the fertility rate, what do you mean by the total fertility rate, all that we'll be discussing in this particular article or the topic, that is National Health Accounts. Next, moving forward, this is nothing but State of Men and Women Report, or Women in India Report. Women in India Report, and this report is by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, that is must be. So we will be discussing about what is the status and what is the gap that they actually have politically, economically, their participation in education, household, etc. Okay, so we'll be discussing that. Next, we will be discussing on the annual state of education report, that is the ASER report. Education report, this is nothing but the ASER report of 2024. Okay, so who releases this particular ASER report? This is nothing but your Pratham Foundation, which is an NGO. Okay, so Pratham Foundation's annual ASER report. We will be discussing this one. And next one is your groundwater assessment report. Okay, so groundwater assessment report, we will be looking at what is the status of groundwater in India, how much of it has been utilized for the drinking purposes and other commercial purposes, how much of them have been exploited, how much of them have been contaminated. All that we'll be discussing over here. And finally, we will be discussing about what the leads report, that is logistic ease in different states. So this report is the last report we will be discussing. So totally there are around 22 reports that we will be discussing. That is, there will be 15 reports globally, plus there are 7 reports released by India. Okay, so these are all the different reports that we will be discussing today. Now let us quickly get started, because we should not waste our time. There are a number of reports that have to be discussed. Okay, so let me just have a sip of water and let us continue. Okay, so let's get started quickly. First one, global gender gap report. You know what is gender gap, right? Gender gap is what? The opportunity differences that which actually exist in a society between both the genders, that is male as well as female. Okay, so here we will actually see that the World Economic Forum has recently published the 18th edition of the Global Gender Gap Report of 2024. Okay, so here it is important for you. Now I am telling you, it is important for you to remember the dimensions, or you can say what are the dimensions you need to remember. What is the methodology for calculating, okay, the ranking? The second one, what is the ranking, specifically India, or which is the top performer and which is the least performing country? And then what are the indicators that are used for calculating whether health, education, political empowerment, or economic opportunities, all these are taken into consideration for what to say, calculating this particular index. And final one, you need to know which is the agency that publishes it. Okay, so if you know these 5, this is more than enough. So that is going to be a takeaway. And next one is your trends, whether India has performed better compared to that of the previous years or not. Okay, so here World Economic Forum recently published its 18th edition of the Global Gender Gap Report for the year 2024. Let's move forward. So see, I'll tell you like a story. Okay, so men, women, very important for economic activity. That is why it is released by World Economic Forum. You need to know what are the opportunities and the gaps in the opportunities between men and women, and that has to be done annually. That is why this report is an annual report. Understand this. So it is an annual index that is published by the World Economic Forum. Okay, so that is the Global Gender Gap Index is actually an annual index along with the Gender Gap Report. This ranks the countries based on the gender equality, and it actually based on what? 4 important dimensions. I will actually tell you. One is the health. Next one is your economic opportunities that you get. Next is the political empowerment you get. And next is, did I tell health? Education that you get. So methodology is, it is ranged between 0 and 1, where 1 indicates that there is full gender parity, both are equal, and 0 indicates complete imparity. Okay, so any score between here and here will decide how much of imparity or parity does a country have. Okay, so now let's move forward and see further. So overall progress, if you actually see, let me show the indicators first. Yeah, this is the indicator. Okay, so the global gender gap index over here, if you see, the gender parity score is between 0 to 100, and 100%, that is 1 actually indicates complete parity, and 100 and 0 indicates complete imparity. Okay, if you see, these are the 4 indicators. One is what is the educational attainment, next one is economic participation, and next is your health and survival index, and finally your political empowerment index. Okay, so closing a gap of around 60.5% means, what does that mean? So whatever opportunities men actually have, women also have of up to 60%, which means the gap is closed for 60%, and the remaining 39.5 or 40% of gap still persists in this particular domain, that is economic participation. So similarly, it is for educational attainment, health, as well as the political empowerment. Okay, so if you actually see health and survival index, almost it is the same. So this is what is the state of gender gap. Now if you see the overall progress, here the global gender gap score for all 146 countries is around 68.6%. That is 68.8% of the gap is closed. Remaining 29% actually persists. This is what is the meaning. And also with the current pace of development, they have actually noticed that complete parity will take another 134 years, and this is going to be far beyond what our targets on sustainable development. Okay, SDG 2030 target. So this is what is the finding. Next one, the performance of the countries. Which country is the first? Iceland. And even after that, if you see, major of the European countries, that is Ireland, Spain, then Sweden, Finland, Norway, these Scandinavian countries have actually performed where, I mean more, where 93.5 is the most gender equal country, that is Iceland. Okay, and this is for the 15th consecutive year. Okay, and following are the other countries I told you, and New Zealand is also a part of it. Now moving forward, if you see India's performance, so India is ranked 129th, and there is a slight decline from the previous ranking 127th. Okay, so this actually shows a negative character. Okay, India has actually declined. If you see the regional standing among the South Asian countries, India ranks the 3rd lowest. Okay, performing better only compared to Pakistan and Afghanistan. Do we have to even compare with Pakistan and Afghanistan, because their level of economic activity, their GDP and their exports, imports, all that is different, right? So you always have to compete with the ones who are above you. Okay, so always, whether it is education or life, your career, it is very important to compete with people by taking inspiration from the people who have done better than you. Okay, rather than comparing yourself with someone else who is not yet at your place currently. Okay, so this is what is the comparison this sadly this report is giving. Then gender gap closure, India has actually closed 64.1% of the gender gap as of 2024. And if you see, there is a wider gap in economic disparity. Okay, so what does it say? Women earn approximately only around 40 rupees for every 100 rupees which are earned by men. Okay, so this means there is a gender wage gap of 60%. Okay, so this is a very sad thing. So this is what is the India's performance. Now let's quickly move to the second article, that is the World Intellectual Property Indicators Report. So what do you mean by intellectual property? These are ideas or the creations of mind, okay, by human beings or by a creator. For example, let's say or an owner. Okay, for example, they've actually come up with a discovery of a particular machinery or a particular drug. Then what do they do? In order to get benefits of their own discovery, they legally protect it. So this is what is called as intellectual property. So intellectual creation, and you are legally protecting that particular property in order to benefit yourself. Okay, so the same intellectual property report, it is actually released by what? The WIPO, that is the World Intellectual Property Organization. And examples of intellectual property is, for example, if you want to legally protect your writing of a book, then what happens? You claim what? Copyright. Similarly, if it is for a product of a particular location, then we give it a geographical indication tag, that is called as a GI tag. Next one, if it is for film, okay, or you can say, wait, let me say, if it is, this is what? A geographical product, okay. Next one, if you say, if it is for a logo or if it is a brand, in order to protect that, you claim what? Patent. And then if you want to, secure your formula, for example, the formula that is used to make Coca-Cola, or you can say the algorithm that Google actually uses for its search engine, all these are protected using what? Something called as trade secrets. Okay, so copyright, then geographical indication, patent, as well as trade secrets. So these are few of the examples of intellectual property. Do you understand? So we are done with this. Now let's move forward and understand the 7 types of IPRs covered by the TRIPS agreement. Just a minute. Okay, let me tell this first. So what do you mean by IPR? I told you, in order to protect your creation, you have the rights which are granted to the creators from being their content being used in an unauthorized way. That's why they say no claiming of copyrights when it is a film or other things. Okay. Similarly, when it is actually a drug or something, then you claim the patent. Okay. Then if it is a goods or a product, then what do you actually have? You have a trademark. Okay, so similarly, so this is actually governed by the TRIPS, that is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights of the WTO, and this establishes the standards of intellectual property rights across different countries. Okay, and also Universal Declaration of Human Rights under its Article 27 says that everyone has the right for the protection of the moral and the material interest resulting from any scientific discovery, any literary discovery, or an artistic production of which he is the author. So basically he can protect legally. Okay, now we will move forward and see what is the WIPI report. Okay, so this is also an annual report by the WIPO. Okay, analyzes the trends in the intellectual property filings. Okay, how much of filings actually happen. So how much ever filings are happening, domestically, for example, if it is measured against the GDP. Okay, so how much ever, for example, if the GDP or your national income for a year, it's suppose 1 lakh crore. Okay, and if there are 144 patents. Okay, so this means that 144 patents have been filed for every 1 lakh crore generation of your GDP. Okay, and the more, or this number when it increases further to 200, this means there is actually more of innovation that is happening in your economy. Do you understand? So this is what is called as filing of ITR. So sorry, not ITR. ITR is income tax returns. I'm sorry, I had to file this month of May, so that is just in my mind. This is IPR, okay? Yeah. So, intellectual world property indicators, this we have done, and this is your IP filings. You can actually do it as patents, trademarks, industrial designs, etc. And this is a benchmark for the countries to assess, okay, how much of innovation capabilities they actually have, okay? Now, let's move forward and see the key findings of this particular report. So, India now ranks 6th globally in the applications of patents, and if you see, there are around 64,000 filings in the year 2023, and there has been a growth. Just understand the trends. There has been an increase in the filings. Next one, the residence filings for the very first time. Okay, 55% of the total patent filings were from the Indian residents itself. This actually shows that innovation in the economy is increasing. And the grants that were actually given, this has increased by 149%, okay, in the patent grants. And also patent to GDP ratio has increased 144 in 2019 to around 381 in 2023. So basically, with respect to the filing, with respect to that of the percentage of GDP, number of indigenous people, or you can say the Indian natives who have filed for it, everything has been on the increase. So this is what is the key findings of the report. Next one, there is a record growth where India experienced around 36.4% of increase in the industrial applications, and also it is by the different sectors. The first one is health, followed by agriculture. Next one is what? If major filings were in textiles, then tools, machines, health, as well as cosmetics, showcasing India's strength. So all these are there. And next one, impact on manufacturing. So this actually shows how India is slowly transitioning towards a make in India or self-sufficient economy, and also a value added, design driven industries. What do you mean by value added? When you actually add value to a conventional method that has already been done, or to a functionality which performs the basic functions, when you do some innovation, then that increases its value. So that is what this particular key findings actually says. And then in terms of global trademark ranking, India, what to say, it scored the rank of 4th globally, and this is also a 6.1% increase. And residents filing, nearly 90% of the trademark filings were by Indian residents, and there were active registrations where India has the second largest number of active trademarks, which is around 3.2 million. Okay, so this is what is trademark with respect to any kind of goods in the economy. Okay, so in terms of, this is given in terms of brands or logos. Okay, so major filings came from health, as I told you, right, 21.9, followed by agriculture 15.3, as then followed by textile or the clothing, that is 12.8. So major was health. Next one, we will see what are the different types of intellectual property rights, IPRs, that is given. First, I told you it is the patent. Okay, so here discovery of any drugs you make or any kind of new machinery you make, you get this particular patent. Next one, for your industrial design of any kind of machinery and the output that you produce, for all that you get this one. Next one is trademark for a particular brand or for particular logo. Next one, copyrights for your writing, your poetry or a book or a novel, whatever it is, or the film. So you get this one. Geographical indication, for example, you have these chilies recently that came in news, and then kannadi paya, which actually kannadi pie, okay, which is an intricately woven mat from the state of Kerala. For all that, you actually get a geographical indication, goods from a geographical location. And also layout designs for integrated circuits, for example, the 3D chips that are used in the circuits. This is an example. Next one, trade secrets, that is formula, as I told you, of food products like Coca-Cola, or you can say the algorithm that a particular brand uses, like for example Google, etc. So these are the 7 different types of IPRs covered by the TRIPS agreement of WTO. Okay, now let's move forward quickly and see, this is what we finished, this is what we finished, and now we will see different initiatives. See, these initiatives, need not know every initiative in detail, but the first one is National Intellectual Property Right Policy of 2016. This basically wants all of us to know or have some awareness about what is intellectual property, and whatever intellectual property ecosystem is there, we need to strengthen that, okay, so that we actually encourage innovation. So that is the basic aim of this particular policy. So the key features is modernization of the offices of intellectual property, where there has to be a streamlined workflow, and there has to be reduced time which is taken for processing these intellectual properties. Next one, awareness programs must be there. That is why you have the National Intellectual Property Awareness Mission, that is the NIPAM. The next one is support for commercialization. That is, you have to establish what? Technological innovation centers. Okay. So this is one of the initiative. Next one, we have startup ecosystems in order to bring up lot of innovations through which you can apply or file for your patents. So initiatives such as Startup India, Digital India, Make in India, all of them were there. Atal Innovation Mission that brought about a lot of Atal tinkering labs, okay, involving the youth to think beyond the horizon. So this is what it is. So Atal Innovation Mission was the establishment of Atal tinkering labs, and also Startup India. This recognized around 1,49,414 startups. Next one, amendment to the IPR rules should actually be made in order to bring about lot of improvements in the procedure, that is the workflow, as well as there should not be any kind of redundancy, okay, or the time taken should be shortened. Next one is the SPRIHA scheme. This actually stands for the scheme for pedagogy. There has to be better framework. It's just like a syllabus, and research in IPRs for holistic education, and followed by that it integrates the IPR education into higher learning institutions. Okay, so these are all the different schemes that are adopted. Next one, we will move on to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, that is nothing but SIPRI. So this actually comes up with the international arms transfers. Okay, what is the rate of import, what is the amount or the quantum of imports of arms does a particular country do across the globe. So this is what it comes up with. So if it found that India remains the second largest arms, where Ukraine was the first, contributing to around 9% of the total global imports of arms, followed by India. Do you understand? And there has been an increase in the import of arms by Ukraine to around 9,243 percentage. Imagine the quantum it has actually imported. So this is from the SIPRI report. Okay. Now let us move forward in understanding some statistics or data. So the world's largest importer, who is the world's largest importer? Ukraine is the world's largest importer, and the second largest is India. Okay, so it accounts for around 8.3%, and this is however a decline from the earlier 9.3% from the previous decade, that is 2015 to 19 or 2015 to 24, previous decade. Okay, main supplier of arms for India happens to be Russia. Do you understand? But earlier the share of arms that we imported from Russia was around 55%. Now it has actually reduced to around what? It has reduced to 36%. Okay, because we are actually diversifying our imports and also focusing on importing from the western countries. Okay, so this is what. Next one, the trends of supply from the west. Okay, so we have actually started importing from France, that is 33%, and from Israel 13%, and majority of the contracts include the US drones, that is MQ-9B drones, as well as the Rafale jets from the France. Next one, diversification and self-reliance. Of course, we are trying to diversify both our supplies as well as the import. Okay, but however, if you see, the foreign investments in this particular defense has actually remained significantly low. Next one, if we see the neighborhood status, so Pakistan's imports of the arms has also increased by 61%. Okay, so of this 61%, 81% of the imports that Pakistan does is from China, its very close friend. This is the primary supplier. Okay. Next, let's move forward in seeing who are the major importers worldwide. So first is Ukraine, largest arms importer, with an imports increasing over 9,627%. And then followed by that you have India, Qatar, Saudi, Pakistan, etc. Next, regional trends, the entire region of Asia as well as Oceania, this accounted for 33% of the imports. Europe, if you see, if it's 28%, Middle East is 27%, and also European imports have increased by 155%, and this is because of the security concerns and the volatility that is happening over there. Okay, and the concerns in Ukraine. Next, if you see major exporters, so of course US is the major exporter with 43%, and this is followed by France 9.6% and Russia 7.8%, and also UAE's United Arab Emirates their exports also increased by 21%, where Russia's exports actually fell. Do you understand? Next one, key trends. So France became the second largest exporter because the first larger is the United States. And this France has actually increased its exports by 11%, and China remains a key supplier to Pakistan, while Germany's arms exports were focused mainly on Ukraine as well as Egypt. These are highly volatile regions. Okay. So if you see this, you can actually, let me zoom it for you guys. So global share of the exports by 10 largest exporters, you can see major share of 43% is by the United States, and followed by that you have Russia, France, that is 9.6, followed by you have Russia, which is actually 7.8, then you have China, Germany, Italy, UK, Israel and so on, and others combined is 12%. Okay, next moving to this one, this is global share of imports. Okay, so Ukraine largest 8.8%, followed by India 8.3%, then you have Qatar, Saudi, Pakistan, as well as Japan, Australia, Egypt, and the next one is United States, that is only 3.1%. Okay, then Kuwait is 2.9, and others actually contribute to around, that is they import around 48%. Do you understand? So this is what is the status of imports and exports as of March 2020, March 2025. Okay, very recent report. Now let's move forward to understand what is SIPRI. So it is actually, it is an autonomous organization that was set up by the Swedish Parliament. Okay, so in order to what? In order to assess the global peace as well as security. So what is the kind of arms control that is happening there? What are the regulations? What are the disarmament efforts that actually come up, as well as resolution of conflict is what it looks into. Okay, then the mission is conducting research and analysis in these areas, and it is headquartered at Stockholm. That is why it is called as what? Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI. Next, funding comes from a combination of allocations by the government, also private contributions are there. And finally, publications is the SIPRI yearbook. This serves as a resource in order to understand what is the in-depth, arms spending, what is the transport, what is the transfer, what is the import, the export that the countries actually do. So this is about SIPRI. Now moving forward is UNESCO State of the Ocean Report. Okay, so the State of the Ocean Report has actually come up by the UNESCO in order to understand what is the health of the oceans that are actually persisting across the globe. So this is what is the UNESCO State of the Ocean Report. Let us be a little fast than usual, because we have 22 reports, and we'll have to try to finish them today, or we will continue. We will actually try our best in order to take it a little faster, but not too rapidly. I'll make you understand. So about the UNESCO State of the Ocean Report. Okay, so the initiation, if you actually see, the report was initiated by the International Oceanographic Commission. Have you heard about this International Oceanographic Commission? This is actually an international cooperation of the oceanic sciences. Okay, very very important, and it is a specialized agency of the United Nations, the only UN body which is specialized in the oceanic sciences and services. Very very important. So it actually sees how do the countries actually collaborate with respect to the conservation of the oceans. How do you improve the management of the oceans further? All that is done by IOC. This is the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. Do you understand? The purpose is to understand what is the current health, okay, and what is the progress that we make towards this particular UN decade of ocean science for sustainable development. So you need to, it's important, this is the decade of what? The ocean science and sustainable development. So you might probably have a question on oceans this time, whether it is the health of the ocean, or whether it is about the high seas treaty, or the blue flag certification. Anything can come, or the mass coral bleaching. These kind of questions can come in the exam, because these are the marine ecosystem associated topics which we dealt with, environment and ecology. Okay, next one, the publication is Yeah, this is, I told you, right? In 2017, the UNGA actually declared this particular decade, that is 2021 to 30, as this decade of ocean science for sustainable development. And also it is released annually by the world's on the world's ocean day, which is on June 8th. Okay, and it aligns with the set of goals with the UN ocean decade. Now let's move forward and see what are the 7 goals of the ocean decade. We should have a clean ocean, we should have a safe ocean, and we should have a productive ocean. Okay, and also we should have a predictable ocean. So all that is there. Okay, then you have to have an accessible ocean, an inspiring ocean. Okay, accessible ocean means it has to be accessible by all the countries. So let us see one by one what are the 7 key parameters. This is okay, right? Yeah, better. So the first one is a clean ocean. Okay, so here clean ocean means you need to analyze and understand or identify what are the pollution that is observed in the particular ocean, whether the pollution rate has actually been reduced or not, whether it is removed or not. So that is what is called as clean ocean. Next one is a healthy ocean. Okay, a healthy ocean, that means you actually have to save it from pollution, and you have to understand the biodiversity that actually lives there. You have to see to that they are protected well, they are restored well, they are managed well. So that is called as a healthy as well as a resilient ocean. Next one is a productive ocean. Okay, so an ocean must actually be a productive ocean in terms of supplying the food supply, as well as a sustainable ocean economy has to be maintained. Next one, a predicted ocean. Okay, where the society, the entire economy or all of us have to understand how the ocean will now react. Over exploitation, this is going to cause a lot of what to say, blunder. Okay, so this is what we need to understand, and also be ready to act for any kind of changes in the ocean conditions. Next one, a safe ocean. Okay, so any kind of ocean related hazards, we have to be safe from that. Okay, so livelihoods have to be protected. Next one, accessible ocean. Okay, where there is open as well as accessible data or information with respect to the oceans. What is the EEZ, whether we can actually exploit our resources there or not, all that we have to see. What is the kind of technology that can be used here, what is the innovation that we can make, all that should be under accessible ocean. Next one, inspiring and engaging ocean. Okay, so in what way ocean can add to the well-being of our lives and sustainable development is what we need to understand. So these are the 7 different goals of UN Ocean Decade of 2021 to 2030. This can also be one of your one liners, or it can be one of these are all brownie points that you can actually, it will help you gain or you can say score well in the mains examination when you write the answer, specifically if you are a geography student. Okay, so next is World Migration Report, that is International Organization for Migration has launched this World Migration Report, and it has told that there has been a notable or significant changes in the trends of the global migration. Okay, so let us actually see. This is released biennially. Okay, once in 2 years. Next, let's move forward and see what is the state of migration. Only when there is out migration or immigration, there is going to be a concept called remittance. For example, if a person or if an Indian actually from here goes to the United States and pursues their masters, and after that they settle down there, whatever income they get, they actually send back, right? In order to sponsor, or what to say, in order to settle back their bank loans, or in order to support their families. So that is called as remittance. Okay, so India receives the highest remittance. Okay, and it has received over 111 billion dollars remittances in 2022. So this is the first country to actually cross 100 billion dollars in terms of remittances. So if you see the percentage of remittance, that is around 27% of remittance to India comes from the United States, and that is followed by UAE. Okay, then UAE, then UK, and so on. Okay, next one, top performers. India has consistently been the top recipient of remittances, and it is immediately followed by Mexico around 61 billion, and then followed by China. Then you have Philippines and France also. Next one, South Asia's remittance landscape. Again, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh are the among top 10 recipients of remittances. So we need to know what is the amount of dependence we have on our migration of labor. Next one, Pakistan and Bangladesh receive nearly 30 billion and 21 billion respectively, not important. And then if you see global remittance landscape, China actually lost the second place to Mexico, okay, because of its stringent policies, because of its demographic shift also. What is demography? The age of the working population. Now, if you see China with being the most populous country of the world, now it is aging. That is, the working age population is decreasing and the number of old age population is increasing. So, because of that also, the remittances are decreasing over here. And also they laid down strict restrictions during the COVID period. Okay, so they had the zero COVID policy where your movement was actually restricted. So that might also be the reason over here. Next one, let's move forward. Next one is India's remittance. It actually it grew by around 33%, but Mexico is fast growing around 42%. And also international remittances increased by 650% from earlier it is actually 128 billion US dollars. Now it is around 831 US dollars. Look at the remittances between 2000 to 2022. In 2 decades, there has been a 650% jump. Okay, so this is the remittance trend. If you see, the India actually has touched 300 billion, so it is 111 billion dollars. And earlier in 2020, it was 83. In 2015, it was only 68 billion, and then it was 53. Followed by that, you have Mexico, China, Philippines, and France. Okay, so here you need to know maximum remittance comes from US and then only UAE. Now, UAE was initially the first one, but now it has been superseded by the United States of America. Okay, now let us move forward in order to see the profile. So, origin of the migrants. So, India is the largest source of migrants. That is why recently also you had a lot of deportation problems from United States, right? We have the legal migrants. At the same time, we also have illegal migrants. Sad is their plight when they do not have any sustainability opportunities or options in India. What happens? At any cost, you can see people selling their properties, their agricultural land, etc., and going abroad. But sadly, they have been deported after Trump became the president of the United States. So India has the largest source of migrants globally and revealed that nearly 18 million or around 1.3% of the India's population are international migrants. Next one, the destination. India is also a destination for immigrants. A lot of people from countries like UAE, from countries like US, Saudi Arabia, all these are actually the migration corridors that are taking place. And on top of that, there are migrants who come from UAE and other states also to settle over here. And the Gulf states remain significant destination for migrant workers, especially the daily wage laborers. If you see the construction industry, so this is where the people actually migrate. This is the main thing, okay, main reason for which they migrate. Now, the next topic, World Solar Report, and this has been brought about by the International Solar Alliance that came into existence in 2015 by the efforts of India and France, okay, at the COP21 of UNFCCC. So this all these details you need to know. Okay, so they released the World Solar Report. Now let us see more about the International Solar Alliance first, very important, and then we will move to the observations of the Solar Report. So as I told you, this actually came in as by the partnership of India and France in the year 2015 at UNFCCC COP21 in Paris. So that is what we had the Paris Agreement and all those things. No? So this only is it. So UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Next, what is the objective? Here, we have to deploy around 1000 gigawatts of solar energy capacity globally by the year 2030. And also you have to mobilize funds for the same, right? Investments have to be there, and that should account to around US 1 trillion, okay, for the solar energy deployment in the member countries. So the membership is around how many? 120 members are here, okay, and there are signatory countries here. Now, what is the mission? The vision is actually let us work together and make the sun brighter. And also they aim at developing innovative financial mechanisms in order to reduce the cost of solar energy deployment, development, production, etc. So the headquarters is in Gurugram, India, Gurgaon. Okay. So first international organization established in the country. Very, very important. Okay. And also I told you World Wildlife Fund for Nature, this is also one of the offices in Delhi, you need to know. Next one, the governance structure. It actually has an International Solar Alliance assembly. Then you actually have a steering committee, and then you have a secretariat. Okay. So the assembly is what is your decision making body. So this consists of representatives from each of the member country, and any member of the United Nations can become a part of it now. Okay. So earlier it was very different. Only the countries from the Tropic of Cancer to Tropic of Capricorn should be, but now it has changed. So Secretariat, administrative arm of this, the head of the assembly is the director general, and who has a tenure of 4 years, and he is eligible for re-election. Remember, like that, good purpose, no? So he can come back. So similarly, next one, key initiatives is it actually has a solar startup campaign or the challenge of 2024. Then you have the solar technology application resource center initiative. Then you have one sun, one world, one grid. This one is very, very important. And then the ISA cares initiative, the global solar atlas. So all these are the initiatives that are taken by the International Solar Alliance. Now let's quickly move to the key findings of the report. So what is the trend in the global solar capacity, as well as what has been the transition in the market dynamics? Okay, so let's see. Solar energy capacity has increased a lot. Okay, so obviously in 2000s we did not realize the impact of climate change, and it was not that much also. So in 2 decades, the menace of climate change and the amount of dependence we have on the non-renewable sources of energy is more. Okay, and also it is resulting in a lot of emissions, specifically the vehicular emission. And because of rapid urbanization, what happens is that there are fast depleting resources, and we could not meet our sustainable development. So because of which we focused on solar energy. Earlier it was only 1 point around 22 gigawatt, but now it is around 1419 gigawatt. Okay, so this actually achieves a CAGR, okay, the growth rate, compounded annual growth rate of 36%. So look at the jump over here. So this is global. Don't think it's India, it's globally. Next one, in 2023 alone, 345 gigawatt of solar power was added. Next one, if you see the market dynamics, of course the market is topped, or mainly occupied, or it dominated by China with around 43%, around 609 gigawatt of the solar capacity installed in the term in terms of the solar panels, etc. Okay, it leads in manufacturing also, that is 97% and 89% of the solar panels, the cells and the module installation capacity, and so on. Okay, so this is what is the global finding. Now moving forward, let's see the other players also. The next one, 43% is too much, but then you have US only 10% with around 137.3. Then you have other countries like Japan, Germany, and then you have emerging markets like Brazil, etc. Okay, and also if you see, the solar accounted for 59% of renewable energy investments in the year 2023. So all these are some statistics that are important for you to know. Let's see the key achievements in the solar technology or the advancements. Sometimes there can be something in news like quantum dot solar cells. What do you mean? See, don't confuse, don't focus this. Basically, don't focus on this. Okay. So what do you mean by quantum dot solar cells? These are solar cells, okay? These are solar cells which consist of very minute particles that can absorb the solar energy, and these are called as the quantum dots. So this actually has special what to say properties in order to absorb light of different wavelengths also. So more energy is absorbed, thereby helps in the generation of more electricity. That's it, as simple as that. This is your quantum dot solar cells. So here itself you have the tunable spectral absorption. This is nothing but these cells can actually absorb the light of different wavelength. That is what is spectral observation, and it comes in various sizes. Next one, long lifetime hot carriers. That is, it can store the solar energy for a longer period of time even after the sunshine is gone. Next one, multiple excitons from a single photon. That is nothing but one sunlight particle. Remember like this, one sunlight particle is equal to one electricity particle. But when you use this quantum dot solar cells, what happened? From one sunlight particle, there will be two electricity particles. So this is the capacity. So there is increased capacity. So that is why there is advancement in the solar technology, and this is called as quantum dot solar cells. Okay. Now let's move forward and understand the next one, the self-healing solar panels. So usually when the solar panels are when they are in use for a longer period of time, it will be subjected to some wear and tear, right, due to sometimes improper maintenance and other things. Okay, so what happens is these are made of such particles, or the self-healing solar panels are those that the incident solar radiation itself will activate the healing process. Okay, so this is made up of such semi-transparent crystalline materials. So when the sunlight is incident on that, it will start the healing process. So that is what is called as self-healing solar panel. So these are few of the advancements that are made in solar technology. If you see the renewable energy capacity of India, very, very important, where you see solar power, it is 45.1%, 90.76 gigawatt, which is followed by the wind power, that is windmills, wind generation, etc. That is 23.547 gigawatts, and followed by that you have the hydro, that is 46, and then you have the biopower, okay, by the plants, etc. And next one you have the small hydropower, that is through water, that is 5.07 gigawatts. So this is the real renewable energy capacity of India as of 2023. Now let us move forward in understanding the World Drought Atlas. Okay, so this World Drought Atlas, we discussed in detail about the condition of drought as well as desertification when we're discussing environment and ecology, right? So recently, if you see, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, that is UNCCD, has come up with this particular atlas that is called as a World Drought Atlas. And here it was what to say, the United Nations Convention and the European Commission's Joint Research Center. They have introduced the Drought Atlas. So let us see how much of area of land is actually subjected to what? This drought conditions and so on. So let's move forward. Okay, so World Drought Atlas, obviously UNCCD along with European Commission's Joint Research Center. So how these human activities or anthropological activities are bringing on, what you say is, are causing or exacerbating or exaggerating the already existing drought risks is what it actually sees, and majorly it identifies 5 critical areas. First one is what? Definitely water. So when water is not supplied enough, then what happens? It affects agriculture, and apart from agriculture, your hydropower is gone. And then when water is not there, then what happens? Your inland navigation is also affected. And finally, the entire ecosystem is affected. So this is how I remember. So it actually impacts, it studies the impacts around 5 critical areas: water, then you have agriculture, and then you have hydropower, then navigation, the entire inland navigation, and then the entire ecosystem. So all this is actually affected. So it takes into consideration global studies of around 21 nations irrespective of the size. It says that a country, regardless of the size, the economic activity or the economic status, the geographical location, no country is immune of drought. So this is what it says, okay? And the nations can enhance their preparedness. This is what the analysis is. And it actually gives you what to say, practical measures that you have to take against such drought-like conditions, okay? So moving forward, let's see key findings of the report. So by 2050, there will be 75% of the global population will face this drought-like condition. And in 2022-2023, around 1.84 billion people were affected, specifically low and middle income. See, I always wonder how even nature is kind to people who are rich. So I don't know how this actually happens, because people who are in the, the vulnerable section, specifically the middle income as well as the low income groups, right? They are always the people who actually face a lot of exploitation as well as the unfairness. So maybe this is why they say life is very unfair. However, so even if you see floods, if you see food scarcity, if you see poverty, if you see exploitation, or if you see trafficking, okay, or even if you see things like prostitution, if you see something like desertification, drought, all this is affecting only the low income as well as the middle income countries. Very, very sad plight. So we need to become responsible officers, okay? So our decisions actually have to definitely try to bring these people up in the social strata and also give them a better life economically, okay? At least people should live with dignity, no? That is a part of our fundamental right. So anyways, let's not get into that emotional aspect. Okay, so this is what is the impact of the drought as well as the risks that is associated. And if you see the economic cost, okay, so it is going to cost $307 billion annually, okay, specifically related to agriculture, trade, energy, etc. Next one, if you see India's drought vulnerability, here India faces significant drought risk because of the varied climate as well as the erratic monsoon. This is aggravated further by the El Nino condition. I hope you remember we discussed this condition of El Nino, ENSO as well as La Nina, right? So what happens in the Western Pacific? What happens in the Eastern Pacific, and what is the impact of the trade winds in altering the ocean currents, okay? So we discussed about El Nino. So El Nino El Nino condition is going to further bring droughts to India. And around 60% of the country's farmland, we are actually a water intensive, or we depend on rainfall. Okay, so we are rain fed agriculture. Then the 2016 drought, if you see, that took place in southern India was because of unusual low rainfall, El Nino effect. Next one, there is rapid urbanization also that is taking place. Huge congestion, huge emission because of that global warming. There is alteration in the the riverbeds, etc. Okay, so such as one that actually happened in Chennai. So these are all the key findings of the atlas and India's vulnerability. Next, let's move to the State of the World's Children 2024 report. I told you this is brought up by the UNICEF, United Nations Children's Fund, right? So children in the future, that is, if you see, by 2050 are going to be affected by three major factors. One is the demographic shift or the transition, where you can say the working age population is going to, there's going to be an alteration in the demography, okay, where the aging population are going to be more and the number of children born are going to be less, so that in 2050 also the number of children who are present today are going to be the same, okay? That is the number. I'm just telling about the number, okay? So the number of children we have here, for example, if you have 2.3 million children, by 2050 also India is going to be having only 2.3 million children. So there is going to be a demographic shift, okay? Then what is the other factor? There is actually a triple planetary crisis. So what do you mean by planetary crisis? First one, it is the climate change that is happening. Okay, so that is going to cause a lot of implications on the children. The next one is the pollution. It's going to affect them because they are going to have other kind of lung diseases, breathing issues, etc. Like right now, if you see, the condition or the air quality index of the NCR region is fast deteriorating. So because of that, and the next one is depletion of biodiversity and the pollution of the ecosystem. So that is also going to be second factor. Next one is the advent of cutting edge technology. Okay, so right now, even if you see, earlier we actually used to put our minds and thoughts, and we put our pen to paper, and then we try innovating a lot in order to write something very useful or for our future references. Okay, whether it's a book or anything. But now you have the advent of artificial technology. So with that, just entering of what you require, it even can write a book for you guys, right? Specifically, it can be copyrighted also. So look at what has been, that is why they say technology or anything for that matter, it can be both the boon as well as bane. So the advent of these cutting edge technologies, and you have internet of things, all that is going to have an impact on the children. Okay, so it has UNICEF has actually come up with the State of Children report, and according to that, there are three mega trends, okay, that will impact the lives of the children by 2050. And right now, see this cute girl. Okay, so the first one is the the demographic shift, where there are going to be declining children as well as an increase in the adult population. Second one, triple planetary crisis, where there's going to be climate change, there's going to be biodiversity loss, as well as the pollution. Next one, there are frontier technologies. These are the cutting edge technologies I told you, like AI, like Internet of Things, etc. So all this is going to have impact on children. So first one, how is the demographic trend going to affect? So now you actually see the current trend is that because of intervention of drugs as well as the discovery of lot of medicines, etc., human beings are actually living for a longer time. And now you know that, right? Recently we have what? Dink culture, dual income, no kids. Okay, so people want to enjoy their lives, not be succumbed to the pressure of the society. So all these dink culture are coming, so they're having fewer children or no children at all. So this is going to change the structure of the demography or the population. So by 2050, number of children under the age of 18 in the world is going to be roughly the same number of children as of today, about 2.3 billion. Meanwhile, the adult population will grow around 7.5 billion by the same time, 2050. The next one, the regional shifts are going to be there. Again, I told you, right? The low income and the middle income are going to be the sufferers. So, most children will live in Africa and South Asia, replacing the regions like East Asia, Pacific and Latin America. If you see specifically, the populous countries like India, China, Nigeria and Pakistan will have 1/3 of the world's children population, and India and China will remain the two countries with most children in the 2050s, with an average of 350 million in India, and there will be around 141 million children in China. So this is what is the impact of demographic, or this is the trend of the demographic changes. Okay, next one, the climate and the environmental crisis trends. You have climate change. Okay, so there is rising temperature, so this is going to affect the health of the children. When the health is affected, their education, the standard of living, or the quality of life that they will get, all that will be altered. Next one, there is a lot of environmental degradation that is actually taking place. So this is going to affect your food as well as water security. So this is going to happen. Next one, there is pollution of air, of water, of soil and whatnot. So this is going to harm the children's development as well as physical well-being. Okay, so the scale of the problem is that around 1 billion children, nearly half of the world's children, live in the countries that face the highest risk of climate change and the other factors that we discussed here. Now, let's move forward and see the next one, frontier technologies. These are cutting edge technologies. Okay, so Cutting edge technologies, what do? They actually push the boundaries of the current scientific and the technological knowledge that we currently possess. So they have a huge transformative potential across various fields like the artificial intelligence, the blockchain technology, the internet of things. So people will be more aware. It is both an advantage as well as disadvantage. Okay, so this is also another reason. Now, let's move forward. State of the World's Forest Report. I told you, released by Food and Agriculture Organization, and the current theme is accelerating forest solutions through innovation. So, what are the solutions that we can reach through innovation is what we will be discussed in this article. Okay, yeah. So let us continue. So FAO has come up with this report, accelerating forest solutions through innovation, and let us see what are the key findings of the report. So surprisingly, there is actually a finding that the rate of deforestation has decreased. Okay, so it has decreased to 10.2 million hectares per year, specifically from 2015 to 2020. These trends are very important. Okay, so from 15.8 million hectares of deforestation, it has reduced by 5 million to 10.2 million hectares. And also, the global mangrove loss has decreased. So, it's a positive trend, right? In the past decade. And also, India has ranked third on the annual net gain. India has gained the cover of the forest during 2010 or 2010, in the past decade, 2010 to 2020. What is the impact of climate change? We know it actually makes the forests very vulnerable to the abiotic and the biotic stressors. Okay, the living and the non-living components. For example, the living actually include the pests. You would have heard about the locust pests, right? And also abiotic are the wildfires because of the conditions, what to say, the hot as well as the dry conditions. Then if you see, boreal forests accounted for nearly 1/4 of the carbon dioxide emissions due to wildfire. When the wildfire comes, what happens? It also we saw, right, a different type of cloud called as the pyrocumulonimbus clouds. They actually form because of wildfires, because there is an updraft of high, or you can say very high temperature winds. Okay, so when they move up, there is actually a cloud formation for even thousands of kilometers that results in thunderstorms, lightning, and dry winds specifically. So that further worsens the condition of wildfire. Okay, and specifically if you see, when there is deforestation, apart from wildfires, there is more, all the carbon that is sequestered, it actually comes out. Okay, so boreal forests, what are these? These are also called as the taiga forests. Okay, they are present in the region below the Arctic Circle. For example, if you see the Scandinavian countries, and then if you see Russia, if you see Alaska, if you see Canada, all these countries actually have what? The taiga forest. And also this region is characterized by low nutrient soil, because most of the soil is under the permafrost condition. Most of it is actually frozen almost. Okay, so low nutrient content. So all this is there. So this actually accounted for wildfires. Next is wood production. The global wood production remains at record levels with approximately 4 billion cubic metrics. This is, sorry, cubic meters that is produced annually. Okay, so these are the key findings of the report. The next one, global report on food crisis. So the Food Security Information Network, that is the FSIN, this has recently released the global report on food crisis. So you need to know what do you mean by food security. I would have already told you, versus what do you mean by food insecurity. Okay, so what do you mean by food security? That is, there has to be accessibility of food to all at all times. This is what? This is food security. Okay, and this also means there has to be accessibility or to food which is actually safe, which actually satisfies your dietary conditions, which is nutritious for you. Okay, and then it has to be affordable, and properly it has to be utilized, and finally all this has to be stable throughout. So this is what is called as food security, whereas food insecurity is absence of all this. Okay, so when there is less or no accessibility, okay, and it can be of two types. One is chronic, when there is no food for a longer period of time. So this is what results in malnutrition or undernutrition. You have your anemic condition in women, we have wasting, stunting in children, you have lot of what you say mortality rates, all that is there. Okay, and it can be transitory also because of temporary fluctuations, whether it is climatic fluctuations, it can be either drought, it can be flood, it can be famine, etc., or it can be due to economic disruptions. Okay, why economic disruptions? Because of inflation, the price level of the food actually increases. Okay, so this is what is your food security versus food insecurity. Now let's move forward to see about this particular report. So it has found out that around 300 million people in around 60 countries, okay, 59 countries and territories are experiencing acute hunger. Okay, they're having chronic hunger in 2023, a worldwide increase of 24 million from the previous year, specifically in volatile regions. Like we spoke about the Ukraine Russia crisis, right? And also if you see this Palestine and the volatility that's happening between Israel and Palestine, the Gaza Strip, all those people are actually further pushed because of the war-like situation. So this is what is food insecurity in this region. Okay, now let's move forward and see this particular report published by the Food Security Information Network as well as the Global Network Against Food Crisis. Easy to remember. And collaboration is that it is a product of 16 partners. They actually collaborate. This includes different stakeholders like intergovernmental organizations, and then whoever are the donors, the technical bodies, as well as other United Nations agencies. So the reference is that it is actually a reference document, and it actually gives a very comprehensive analysis of the status of the food insecurity in the world. Next one, the objective is to inform the humanitarian and developmental action by providing independent and consensus based evidence and analysis. Okay, not so important, you just have to know about this report. What are the findings? Population are in crisis, around 300 million people, okay, which is around 22% who are inhabiting around 69 or 60 countries. Okay, they are in the food crisis situation. The trend is this marked the fifth consecutive year of the rise in the number of people against the acute food security. Once UPSC had asked a question on the food insecurity or the food shortage. So this is recently seen in which of the following regions? The Sahel region, Uganda, Namibia, etc. So you need to know. Anyways, we will cover the regions and focus also. Don't worry, after we are done with reports and indices, we will do that. Okay. So, nearly 24 million more people faced high levels of acute food insecurity. Then, deterioration. Acute food insecurity deteriorated in 12 countries with comparable data. Not that important. Majorly, it has actually increased only. And if you see the improvement, food safety as well as food security improved in 17 countries, okay, between the period of 2022 to 2023. So this is what is the key findings of this particular report. Okay, that's it. If you see the hotspots in the it's in the conflict regions. If you see here, you can see the Gaza Strip, the Sudan region. Emergency is around 36 million people in 39 countries faced emergency, with more than a third coming from the regions of Afghanistan as well as Sudan. Very important. Then malnutrition, acute malnutrition is observed in children and women, okay, especially in the conflict affected areas. Then displacement also have been there. Okay, so because of forcible displacement also they found this particular issue. Okay, so these are the key findings of the Global Food Security Report. Next is the plastic overshoot. Okay, so this has actually been released by a Swiss based research agency that is called as the Earth Action. So what do you mean by plastic overshoot? This is nothing but the quantity of plastics that is actually produced by the country versus the capacity of the plastics to manage it. Okay, to manage it. And each country has its own plastic overshoot day. Let us see what this actually talks about. So let's be mindful of the time. Okay, so we still have time. I think we can finish this. Okay, so plastic overshoot day. Plastic overshoot day actually marks the point where the amount of the plastic waste which is generated, it exceeds the capacity of how much a nation or the world can manage it. This results in environmental pollution and degradation. Understandable? Is it easy? Next one, each country will have its own overshoot day. Again, not important. And this is again determined by what is the amount of plastic that the country produces, or how much is the waste that is generated, how much it is imported, how much it is exported, and what is the capacity of the country in order to manage it. Okay, so this is what is the overshoot day. Here, let us see what is the objective of this particular report. We need to know, or the people or the country that is producing it has to be very what to say, very aware of the unsustainable rate at which the world is consuming as well as producing these plastics. That is what is leading to environmental degradation. To know about this only, this particular overshoot day report or the overshoot day is observed. Okay, next one, there are 6 different categories. So this particular report actually categorizes the countries based on 6 different types depending upon the quantity of waste it actually produces, how much it imports, exports, and all those things. Okay, or how well they manage it. So if you see, overloaders, one of the category where there is too much of production. Next one is low waste producing polluters. Next one, toxic waste producers, transactors, self-sustainers, and moderators. Now it is very important to know where India actually stands. Do any of you know? Please mention in the comment section, where does India stand? In which of the category India stands? Let's move forward. So, global findings and Indian findings we will see. So, there has been global produce, okay, to a very great extent, and there has been mismanagement also. So, there has been an increase in the waste generation by 7.11%. So, increase are there. If you see 12 to 13 major countries, like you see China, India, Russia and United States are responsible for over 60%. You know, out of this, almost 20%. India accounts for 20% of the plastic pollution, and we would have discussed this in the plastic waste management rules of 2016 and the recent rules of 2024, where it has actually expanded the what definition of the exporters, importers, sellers, manufacturers, etc. Please do watch our environment and ecology session. All these what I say legislations have been covered. Okay, next one, per capita plastic waste generation is around 28 kg. That is, one person is producing around 28 kg. Okay, sorry, not producing, generating. Okay, yeah, that's what, annually. So Belgium has the highest per capita plastic waste generation. This is around 147.47 kgs, it seems, per person. I don't know what is their consumption like that. So the plastic overshoot day, that is on 5th September. What is 5th September? Teachers Day, right? Yeah. So the amount of plastic waste generated worldwide is projected. So this is observed. Overshoot day is observed on 5th of September in order to improve on the global waste management systems. Okay. So this is what is the global finding. Now let's see findings related to that of India. So here India actually observes it on 23rd of April. That's why we are discussing now. So low per capita waste. So despite actually being one of the 12 main contributors to mismanaged plastic waste, if you see, The per capita waste is very, very low. It is only 8 kg per person, but still it is big only, no? So 8 kg per person. Next, you see it's better than Belgium. It's 147, it seems. So India is classified as what? A low waste producing polluter. We are a polluter, but we are a less waste producing polluter. Next one, highly mismanaged waste is around 7.4 million tons, and there is also microplastic pollutants. Okay, so you need to know what is plastic pollution, what is microplastic, what do you mean by nanoplastics. This depends upon the size. Okay, so you need to know. And also one time or single use plastics. India banned the single use plastics, right? So all these you need to know. So microplastic, India is expected or estimated to release around 4 lakh tons of microplastics and around 31 tons of chemical additives into the environment, and we actually observed it in 2024 around April 23. So this is what is your plastic overshoot day. Next one, human development report. Okay, so the United Nations Development Program, so UNDP's human development report, uh, what is it, sorry, human development report, India's human development index is okay. So according to the UNDP's human development report, you have India's human development index is around 0.644. Now we will see how it is actually measured between 0 to 1, whether 0 means it is actually means that human development is better, or 1 means it's better. We will see. Okay, so similarly you need to remember about the global gender gap. Okay, so it is 1 and 0, which is actually what you say parity and which is imparity. This is what you need to know. So, according to this, India's HDI is around 0.644, which is 134 rank when compared to, or you can say on the ranking between 193 countries. Okay, so 134 has been India's ranking. So, if you see HDI, it is a tool that is used to measure, or you can say compare the achievements in human development. Okay, so human development actually encompasses different dimensions of parameters, or you can say indicators. One is actually what is the kind of longevity or the life expectancy you have, whether you have a long as well as healthy life, whether you have proper education. Okay, so whether you have a proper quality or the standard of living. So based on all that only this HDI is calculated, and it is compared between the citizens of different countries. Okay, so this has actually brought into, or the concept was introduced by a Pakistani economist, and his name was Mehboob ul Haq. Okay, and this is actually published by the United Nations Development Program, and it is an annual report that comes since 1990. So if you see Human Development Index, I already told you, right? So what are all the parameters on which the HDI is measured? So first one depends on, let's start with long life. Okay, so you have a long and healthy life. Okay, so whether how much of long life you're having, so what is your life expectancy that you're having at birth, and that is a part of life expectancy index. The next one is the knowledge. When you are healthy, you again go to school, right? Then here what is your, the education index is calculated, that is your mean years of schooling and the expected years of schooling. How much of schooling of year, how many years of schooling is expected of you versus how much you do. So that is what is your knowledge. And when you are educated, when you are healthy, of course your quality or the standard of living is going to increase. Okay, so this is actually based on your purchasing power parity. Okay, purchasing power parity, how much of goods that you can actually purchase from a particular basket. Okay, so this is called as purchasing power parity, and this is compared with what other country in that, specifically in terms of US dollars. So this is what is the HDI. Don't go into this PPP and all, that is all, economy concept. Now let's see methodology of calculating or the key dimensions. First I told you health is there, right? So that is by life expectancy. Next, education, average number of years that you have to school versus the years you go to school. So this is one. Next one, here also the years of schooling received by adults aged 25 and older, as well as the expected years of schooling for children at their school going age. Next one, standard of living. This is actually calculated by PPP and the gross national income, not the GDP. Okay. Next one, education dimension. This is actually the arithmetic mean of two education indices. Not important. Okay. This is not important. And again, it is calculated by geometric mean of equal weighted. Not important. So the score actually ranges between 0 to 1. Okay. So a higher HDI value, this indicates a higher level of human development. That is 0.9 indicates your human development is good, and 0. India is 0.64. So it is actually better. When you see the other statuses, it is actually better. So this is the methodology. If you see India's ranking, India actually has a score of 0.644 and it is ranked 134 in 2022. So this is actually a very slight improvement, because the previous year in 2021 we had a rank of 135. Okay. Then it falls under a medium human development, which is almost 50%, right? So medium human development, and between 1990 and 2022 we saw over 48% increase in the HDI value, because in the previous decades it was 0.4, where now we have increased to 0.644. Next, India's progress on other various indicators. Life expectancy has also increased because of better technology, medicines, drugs, etc. Okay, to around 67 years in 2022, and expected years of schooling has increased to around 12.6 years of schooling, and GNI has surged to USD 6,951. So this is measured in terms of PPP. Now, gender inequality reduction. So, there has been reduction in the gender inequality that India has worked for. So, India ranks 108 out of 166 countries in gender inequality index. Okay. So, we have reduced the inequality, and also GII value of 0.4 is better than the global and South Asian averages. Not important. We know, right? GI scores, differ between 0 and 1. Here it is totally different. See, human development index 0, 1. Okay. Inequality index 0, 1. Human development index is when you are moving this side, when the score is higher, that means your human development is actually better. Whereas here 0 means in GII, here there is complete equality or complete parity. 1 means complete imparity. Know the difference very carefully. Next one, performance of India's neighborhood. Sri Lanka and China, they actually rank higher than that of India, whereas you see Bangladesh, Bhutan, they also rank better than India, 125, 129. You know which actually has the World Happiness Index? Bhutan or Nepal? You just mentioned in the comment section. And Nepal is actually 146, and Pakistan, and all these are lower than India. I always tell you, look at people who are above you, who have performed better, and take motivation from them. Don't never look at people who are trying to come to your standards. Do you understand? Okay. Next one. Moving forward, state of world's migratory species. Let's see if the time permits. Okay, so we just have 5 more minutes. So anyways, we have 2-3 more reports to be done. These are the global reports, and we have Indian reports also, around 7 reports we have. Anyways, we have to close it right now. So anyways, fine. Thank you all for actually watching this particular session. So we have state of world migratory species. I think one is on, I don't recall. We have 3 more important reports, and also tomorrow we will start with the Indian reports, and I just hope we finish the global indices as well as Indian indices also tomorrow. Okay. So tomorrow should be the last session for our scheme, I mean for our reports as well as indices, after which immediately day after tomorrow we will be starting with what to say, international organizations. Okay, we'll be discussing about various international organizations, the regional groupings, the agreements we have with respect to the bilateral agreements that we have with different countries, all those, the COMCOSA and all those things, COMCASA and all those with the United States, and what are the recent agreements with other countries like Sri Lanka, all that we will discuss. Okay. So thank you so much for being patient and watching. So all these PPTs will be available for download at our Narayana IAS Academy app. Okay, and also you can visit us on our Navigator, Narayana Navigator website, where you will have the compilations of the monthly as well as the yearly current affairs. So please stay tuned. I will meet you in yet another live session of discussing the remaining indices tomorrow. So thank you so much. Have a good day.